I did not know about Ernest Hemingway 2 months ago, but once I did and started reading his work, a lot has changed in how I think and how I see his way of thinking of the world. Even if you do not want to know about him and do not give two shits about who he is and what is his work, I think there is still lots to learn from his work and how he perceived the world and how he thought of the human nature. This is a tragic story of Ernest Hemingway in my words. Two words to start this essay with: empathy and compassion. Hemingway's work redefined the meaning of both empathy and compassion, not in a loud manner with sentimental virtues, but as a quiet, understated bonding of shared human struggles. According to the New York Times, he was the most significant author after Shakespeare. Some paint him as the ultimate hyper masculine adventurer, a man who hunted lions and survived plane crashes. And on the opposite spectrum, others see him with a much harsher lens: a womanizer, egocentric liar, and a toxic degenerate. The truth is, both of these portraits are completely accurate, but they are also widely incomplete. Some of his 7 novels, 6 short story collections, and 2 nonfiction works have become classics of American literature, and he was awarded the 1954 Nobel Prize in Literature. He was in no way, shape, or form an ordinary man. He was married 4 times, survived 2 plane crashes. He was in both world wars and was a deep sea fisherman. He hunted big game in Africa, which I mentioned already. Even if you've never read a single page of The Old Man and the Sea, and if you don't give a damn about 20th century literature, there is still a profound, terrifying story hidden beneath the modern caricature. It's a story rarely told in classrooms. It isn't a story of triumph, it's a tragedy about a man who was quite literally predestined to destroy himself. With so many experiences that an average person can only dream of, he still ended up taking his life with a shotgun. This essay is also going to reflect on self-harm and topic of suicide in relation to Hemingway's story, which I hope can help you understand the different mental states of a human being. We will divide this short essay in various parts to start from his childhood, family, and when he ended his life. Ernest Hemingway was born and raised in Oak Park, Illinois. He began writing as early as in high school. His father was a doctor. He was probably, or should I say, likely an undiagnosed bipolar person, and you will soon get why. He would regularly beat Ernest when he was very young. He would beat him with a leather strap. Through a combination of genetics, severe physical trauma, and a word that completely failed to understand mental health, Hemingway was doomed from the very start. In his memoir, A Movable Feast, Hemingway famously wrote, quote, "Families have many ways of being dangerous," unquote. He wasn't speaking metaphorically, he was speaking about his father. As I previously mentioned, that Ernest was already a good writer in school, so instead of him gaining confidence to write further from his family, he would get shouted at, and his father, Clarence Hemingway, would despise his writing and even called it filth. His father would get depressed time to time and would spend weeks in their cabin further in the countryside away from home. Throughout Ernest's writing, he would admire and despise his father time to time, showcasing the same bipolar nature of his thinking of his father and their relationship as well. When Ernest was a child, he would play around with empty shotgun while hiding and would point the aim of the gun to his father's head, to basically acting an assassination attempt in a playful manner. When his father, Clarence, lost his battle with depression and shot himself in the head, Ernest's word split into definitive before and after. For Ernest Hemingway, if we look past the macho myth with a bit of empathy, we don't find a flawless hero or a simple villain. We find a man trapped in a biological cage running out of time. Later, two of Ernest's siblings also died due to taking their own life as well. That makes you wonder, was that biological, hereditary, or just the nature of things as they were playing out around their family? And then there was his mother, Grace Hemingway. Ernest hated her with a permanent, unrelenting rage. Grace was obsessed with treating Ernest and his older sister Marceline as twins. She kept Ernest's hair long, dressed him in lace dresses, and wrote "Summer Girl" on the back of his photographs. Yet in the same breath, she would praise him for hunting and fishing, pushing him toward extreme masculinity. It was very confusing from the very start for little Ernest. When his father committed suicide, Ernest blamed Grace entirely, claiming her controlling, domineering personality drove his father to the trigger. In his personal letters, he even referred to her mother as bitch. The hatred was immense towards both of his parents, but especially towards his mother. Modern researchers believe both Ernest and his father suffered from severe bipolar disorder. Fast forward to many years, Ernest's youngest son died of substance use and died of natural causes in a jail cell, and he was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder as well. His granddaughter would struggle with depression and bulimia before taking her own life. Now that is 6 suicides across 4 generations of a single family. Hemingway was born with a generational talent for words, but he was also born with a ticking biological clock. To manage the terrifying images and moments from his head and to get himself out from the paranoia into melancholy, Hemingway turned to the only medicine available at the time: alcohol. His dependence started early, as early as an 18-year-old ambulance driver in World War, where he was shredded by enemy shrapnel. While recovering in an Italian hospital, he was already bribing porters to smuggle bottles of cognac. By his 30s, drinking wasn't a social habit. It was a daily survival mechanism. His third wife left him because of his unceasing alcoholism. Doctors repeatedly begged him to stop, warning him that his liver was actively failing. He just couldn't do it. What Hemingway didn't realize was that his cure was actually accelerating his doom. Decades of heavy daily alcohol abuse permanently altered his brain chemistry, essentially forcing open the floodgates of psychosis and paranoia that would terrorize him in his final years. If you look at Hemingway's medical history, it reads less like the life of a writer and more like a demolition derby. Over his lifetime, Hemingway suffered at least 6 severe traumatic brain injuries. The definitive blow came in 1954 during a safari in Africa. Hemingway survived a plane crash, suffering a sprained back and shoulder. The very next day, attempting to escape the wilderness, he boarded a second plane. That plane crashed too. It burst into flames on the ground. Hemingway used his own head as a battering ram, smashing his skull into the jammed metal door to break it open. He fractured his skull, ruptured his liver, and spinal fluid was even actively leaking from his ears. All of this was happening in a world that simply did not care about or understood mental health. To seek psychological help as a man in the early 20th century was viewed as an absolute surrender of your masculinity and dignity, especially for a global icon of manhood like Hemingway. By the late 1950s, the physical pain from an undiagnosed hereditary disease called hemochromatosis, combined with its deteriorating brain, threw him into a living nightmare. He told a friend, quotes, "It's like being in a Kafka nightmare. I am bone tired and very beat up emotionally," unquotes. To give you context, by Kafka he meant Franz Kafka, another prolific writer and novelist. Desperate, he secretly checked into the prestigious Mayo Clinic under an assumed name. The medical establishment's cutting-edge solution, well, the psychologists and the doctors recommended 10 rounds of electroconvulsive shock therapy, which basically ended up as a demise of him taking his life later on. It was a primitive disaster. The treatment shattered his memory. Crucially, it robbed him of his ability to write. He would sit at his typewriter for hours, breaking down in tears, unable to find the words. The one thing that gave his life purpose, the only tool he had to fight his demons, was now gone. In the spring of 1961, the end came in a frantic rush. Within a span of 4 days, his wife saw him loading a shotgun. His chaperons wrestled the gun away from him at home, and during a plane refueling stop, he tried to walk directly into a spinning propeller. On July 2nd, 1961, days after returning home from a second round of shock therapy, Ernest Hemingway woke up early, went downstairs, and ended his life by shooting himself in the head with the shotgun. This isn't to say Hemingway was entirely a helpless victim. He made terrible choices. He broke hearts, alienated his children, and let his ego burn bridges across the globe. But when we talk about him, we owe it to his memory to look beyond the two-dimensional labels. Whether you see him as the rugged adventurer or the flawed alcoholic, you're only seeing the surface. We have to look at the why and the how. We owe empathy to the living, but to the dead, who can no longer defend their own names, we owe absolute honesty.